Mechanicum, Metaphysicum, exploring the possible mechanisms of the observable and unobservable world, with Valerie Lynn Stevens. Chapter 3, of wave functions and meandering particles, the light of the dark matter. What we discreetly refer to as science versus spirituality, or physics versus metaphysics, continue to demonstrate themselves as non-mutually exclusive systems. In fact, the very same phenomena observed by physicists and the like have been recorded within so-called religious texts far before the mid-19th to turn of the 20th century up until now, when the majority of our scientific discoveries in progressional momentum has been in full sway. From the book of Genesis of Judeo-Christian texts and so on, naturalistic phenomena are recorded which we are merely referencing in the annals of humanistic discovery. That is to say, we are perhaps merely reiterating in our observations the verity of pre-existent actualities created and set forth not by humankind, but by God himself. Or, if one prefers a more secular term, pre-existent actualities set forth by nature, her, or itself. Moreover, in the book of Revelation, also taken from Judeo-Christian scripture, we find eschatological references which correspond with the inferences drawn in the realms of cosmology and astrophysics. For example, when our sun exhausts its nuclear energy and begins its transformation into a red giant star, thus baking all the earth and those who dwell upon it in lethal cosmic radiation, we find parallels in 2 Peter 3:11-12. The heavens will be destroyed by burning, and the elements will melt with intense heat, as well as in Isaiah 34, verse 4, which may be a possible black hole reference, and the sky will be rolled up like a scroll. Furthermore, the findings in physics, quantum physics, astrophysics, and physics in general concerning Albert Einstein's theory of relativity also bear Judeo-Christian scriptural precedent. For example, in 1 Timothy 6:16, Jesus Christ is referred to as someone who alone is immortal and who dwells in unapproachable light, whom no one has seen nor can see. This could be a reference to the speed of light constant imposed upon earthly biological entities. Further, it could also allude to the gravitational and quantum mechanical limits and ambiguities imposed upon all life within our cosmos, such as Pauli's exclusion principle. The Pauli exclusion principle observes how no two electrons can have the same four quantum electronic numbers. Hence, spin in atoms with half-integer spin, which are fermions, obey the Pauli exclusion principle and follow the principles of the Fermi-Dirac distribution. This is because an interchange of fermions in any given atom would change nothing, and thus be anti-symmetric. And in order for a wave function to change signs and remain itself unchanged, is if the function was zero everywhere, and then such a state could not exist. Moreover, spin in atoms with integer spin, which are bosons, do not need to obey the Pauli exclusion principle and are thus considered symmetric. Bosons instead follow the principles of Bose-Einstein distribution, such as photons in a laser or atoms found in Bose-Einstein condensates, which form the basis of superconducting materials. This principle could also more metaphorically parallel the infinite complexity and uniqueness of each and every thing and being which God or nature has created. More specifically, the verse, which refers to unapproachable light by believers, is thought to allude to the speed of light constant, which no human entity since Christ, for those who follow Judeo-Christianity, has been able to breach. Furthermore, according to Einstein's special theory of relativity, as one approaches the speed of light, time to an earth dweller would appear to come to a complete standstill. This could be just another way of describing what happens when one has surpassed the light speed constant for Earth, or in essence has breached eternity, or timelessness. Of course, to us it would appear to have stopped. For the individual who has reached beyond the event horizon of a black hole, because the ability to observe time is limited to our current biological and physical calculations and extrapolations. Indeed, there are many who have experienced mystical states of altered consciousness, whereby time-space itself seems to become infinitely expansive and indescribably timeless. Perhaps this also points to there being some validity behind the postulate that the new heaven and the new earth of eternity is being in part accessed during these superluminous sojourns of the mind. Many also posit that REM sleep and parasomnias such as hypnagogia and lucid dreaming may be an actual entry of metaphysical realms, which mundane consciousness neither can access nor observe. Perhaps then, according to this fantastical, yet plausible view, at least in the realm of metaphysical and theoretical neuroscience, we are all time-space travelers of a sort. Theoretical physicist David Bratina has developed some very intriguing postulates concerning temporal indifference within quantum systems versus the time-dependent linearity of entropy and thermodynamics, and how this greatly affects positively, neutrally, or adversely human perception and indeed progress and evolution. One of his works is entitled Looking for Space-Time: How Our Perceptions of Time Obscure the Reality of Our Existence. Furthermore, when pondering things such as eternity and infinity in a theoretical sense, we begin to see striking and fascinating parallelisms to certain cosmological and astrophysical phenomena. Further, upon our glimpse into areas such as physics and quantum physics, more specifically regarding astrophysical bodies named in 1967 by theoretical physicist John Wheeler as black holes, we begin to make some intuitive connections. Wheeler also introduced the concept and the term wormhole in 1957. Moreover, Polish theoretical physicist Mechanicum has also made striking observations related to black hole behavior. Instead of the postulation that the intense gravitational pull of every black hole inevitably leads to a singularity, he posits that they may be torsional vortexes which lead to a white hole portal into another universe. This strikingly parallels Judeo-Christian scripture found in John 14:2, which refers to the kingdom of heaven as being many mansions being created. Moreover, there is an undeniable correlation between Einstein's special theory of relativity, quantum mechanics, and biblical concepts such as the eternity or timelessness of the nature of God, or God's omniscience and the nature of his dwelling or kingdom. Of course, these are merely metaphorical speculations at this point. Nevertheless, it is all very fascinating to ponder. In continuum, when Albert Einstein proposed his theory of special relativity in the German physics journal Annalen der Physik in 1905, he posited the existence of an electromagnetic particle which he called a photon, which would become the cornerstone of quantum field theory later. He also posited in this theory of special relativity that only non-accelerating observers would experience a uniformity of the observed laws of physics regarding the speed of light outside of the vacuum. His theory of general relativity, which postulated gravity as being not a force per se, but a gravitational field of warping due to the presence of massive objects, took him about 10 more years to flesh out. Moreover, the field known today as quantum electrodynamics, or QED for short, has achieved the first successful synthesis of Einstein's special relativity theory with quantum mechanics. For disambiguation, quantum mechanics specifically refers to the theorem, and quantum physics refers to the broader field of study, which encompasses quantum chemistry, quantum field theory, quantum technology, and quantum information science. Furthermore, this area of quantum electrodynamics attempts to elucidate upon the mechanisms which may be at work between light and matter. More specifically, it attempts, through rigorous tests, to mathematically configure the fine structure or Sommerfeld constant. The fine structure constant measures the strength of the electromagnetic interaction between elementary charged particles. This area of inquiry holds promise for both theoretical and empirical physicists, as well as the average layperson, in humanity's quest for the holy grail of grand unified theory. Indeed, bongo enthusiast and much acclaimed theoretical physicist Richard Feynman, who was integral to the development of QED, called this perturbation theory of the electromagnetic quantum vacuum the jewel of physics. Feynman, who worked and played from 1918 up until his passing in 1988, eventually won the Nobel Prize in Physics, along with Julian Schwinger and Shinichiro Tomonaga, for his contributions to QED and fine structure or Sommerfeld constant experimentation, superfluidity properties of liquid helium, and for his Parton model relating to particle physics. Furthermore, this Parton model expanded upon an area of particle physics called quantum chromodynamics. Quantum chromodynamics was a model developed to describe the behavior of hadrons at high energy collision rates. It sought to parallel the mechanism of QED radiation arising from accelerated electric charges with that of accelerated colored partons emitting QCD radiation in the form of gluons. The physicist term color actually only refers to the three types of charges, drawing an analogy from the red, green, and blue which the human eye can perceive. Gluons are massless vector bosons with a spin of 1. They mediate the exchange between quarks involved in the strong nuclear force binding mechanism. The term gluon was coined by Murray Gell-Mann in 1962, borrowed from a phrase in James Joyce's Finnegan's Wake, which captured his imagination. Quantum chromodynamic theory models how these quarks are bound into groups, which then form hadrons such as protons and neutrons. Now, moving on to another fascinating subject, the concordance chart. According to what physicists, cosmologists, and astronomers, etc., refer to as the concordance chart, our universe is thought to be composed of 4 classified types of energy/matter. Interestingly enough, baryonic matter, or matter composed of baryons, of which we humans are made, makes up just about 5% of all matter energy. In fact, dark matter and dark energy are what most of our universe seems to be mostly made of. Dark matter composes about 26.8% of all matter, yet most intriguingly enough, dark energy makes up a whopping 68.2%, or more, of all matter/energy. And although dark matter and dark energy are still conjectural concepts, in the standard model of cosmology, called the lambda CDM model, the math checks out so far. In laboratory settings, due to dark matter not being prone to interact with baryonic matter or with radiation, it must be observed through gravitational effects. Furthermore, the most current postulate is that perhaps dark matter is merely the force of some undiscovered particle, bemusedly named by physicists as WIMPs, or weakly interacting massive particles. Another contender is the axion. In 1977, a problem arose called the strong CP problem, or charge conjugation symmetry and parity symmetry. In quantum chromodynamics, CP symmetries seem to be preserved during strong interactions, which did not fit the mathematical model of the day. Thus, physicists Frank Wilczek and Steven Weinberg postulated the axion in 1978 to account for this seeming missing matter, which seemed to allow for CP violations on the weak force scale, but not on the stronger interactional scale. Then we have PBHs, or primordial black holes, which also bear the amusing acronymic of MACHOs, or massive compact halo objects. And due to these being non-baryonic, they could be another contender. Indeed, in 2016, at the Advanced LIGO-Virgo Laser Interferometer Gravitational Wave Observatory, 1 month after the detection of the merging of 2 black holes via gravitational waves, confirmed at 2 separate sites, scientists stated that these black holes could have been primordial, although not all within their field concur on this. Further, we have exotic theoretical particles called nuclearites, which are thought to be composed entirely of quarks, which may be the stuff of dark matter. The other contenders are exotic hadrons, which experience the strong force, with quark structures beyond the usual standard model, 3 quarks for baryons, and anti-quark quark pairing mesons, such as tetraqubes, composed of 4 quarks, and pentaquarks, composed of 5 quarks. Exotic hadrons could be related to dark matter, but only if they interact with normal matter through gravity, or a mirror world. Moreover, we have dark energy. Dark energy is what is theorized to be the driving accelerated expansion. Theorized to be driving the accelerated expansion of the universe. Although very low in density in comparison to ordinary matter, it nevertheless dominates the mass energy content due to its uniformity spread across space, as observed and verified by the cosmic microwave background captured from the WMAP, or Wilkinson Microwave Anisotropy Probe satellite. In addition, this proposed dark energy is also what slows the rate of structural formations, such as stars and galaxies, thus providing stability for galaxies. When supernovae were being measured, cosmic inflation was deduced due to the unexpected redshifting. Thus, this dark energy theory was first proposed. Interestingly, were Albert Einstein still around, his so-called and self-confessed blunder, the cosmological constant, is now one of the prevailing other explanations for this dark energy phenomenon. Although many love to criticize all that Einstein got wrong, he also got a lot of things right. Other hypotheses for cosmic inflation in strong force CP symmetry are scalar fields, the observational effect, cosmological coupling, and shock-wave cosmology. Thus, to play upon some metaphysical metaphors and to make some possible connections here, perhaps this dark energy and dark matter contains more theological and philosophical significance than we think. Perhaps, as stated in Ephesians 6:12 of the Judeo-Christian scripture, for our struggle is not against flesh and blood, creatures composed solely of baryonic matter, but against the powers of this dark world, and against the spiritual forces of evil in the heavenly realms. Bose-Einstein condensate-type entities solely composed of fermionic or some other type of exotic matter. In essence, perhaps we possess more hard scientific proof of spiritual phenomena than we think. After all, is it really such a stretch of the imagination to postulate that what we deem the spiritual or metaphysical is valid phenomena which merely manifests on a subatomic and Heisenbergian level? For yes, we cannot directly observe what is by nature perhaps not wholly immaterial, nevertheless both microscopically and macroscopically unobservable with our current technology and know-how. But maybe someday. After all, many of various religious faiths believe that spirit is energy, and energy is spirit. Indeed, much of our so-called hard science does not definitively refute this possibility of a more transcendental kind of matter, energy. In fact, new subatomic particles called exotic are being measured in high-energy particle colliders with more regularity. And some also postulate that perhaps what we have dubbed dark matter and dark energy are merely the mechanisms of a more deific architecture and blueprinting for those many mansions to come. That is to say, perhaps the light of the dark matter is an eternal inheritance of wondrous worlds to come for those who believe, as they affix their mystical gazes faithfully upon the supernal Father and Creator who guides them. For this would indeed be a gradualistic and welcome collapse of the wave function, by which the old Copenhagen interpretation would pale in comparison when all conditions have been set. Which brings us to the intersection of science and reason, yet again. And since I was raised within the Judeo-Christian tradition, this is the reference point that I will spring off from, since I am most familiar with its particular philosophical terrain. Dear readers can substitute their own particular faith systems and worldviews as need be. So, let us start with this. Can a rational person truly embrace the Judeo-Christian faith? The consensus is that they cannot. The consensus is that intelligence is in inverse proportion to one's belief in those things that one cannot prove beyond the shadow of doubt. Moreover, the reductionistic and erroneous stereotype of the scientist and the logician assumes that one must be engaging in some kind of magical thinking and fallacy if they profess theism over atheism or even agnosticism. The realm known as apologetics seeks to bridge, as much as is possible, this gap between reason and faith. It seeks to synthesize the exoteric with the esoteric, if you will. And indeed, many rational people begin approaching any kind of spirituality or religiosity with extreme skepticism. And this is not altogether the wrong approach. After all, the scriptures make an allowance for honest, rigorous testing of all things, and in fact, admonish God's children to exercise reason and discernment in all of our daily dealings. Moreover, a descent into a kind of existential Hades is how every believer's faith is strengthened, refined, and authenticated. The Lord answers all who seek him, and he gives wisdom to those who earnestly seek it. Asking questions and even strongly doubting in numinous phenomena does not display a lack of faith. On the contrary, it demonstrates it. Only those who lack the humility to investigate everything because they think they know it all are in danger of condemnation. In Romans 1:20 of Judeo-Christian scripture, we are told that God can be clearly seen in all of his creation, and that no one will have an excuse in the end. I personally find it irrational to totally reject even a Pascalian wager concerning the existence of a sovereign, omniscient, and omnipotent deity. Even given what little we currently have been allowed by God's good grace to discover in the realms of science, etc., I see plenty of evidence of the existence of God, however deductive it may be. Yet I see it not only in the affirmatives, but also in the negatives, or in the lack of knowledge that our epistemological cup still runneth over with. It seems therefore more rational to me, or perhaps just wise, that we lack any other equitably sufficient explanation other than what God reveals through special revelation and through general revelation, through both his word and his creation, respectively. Therefore, we should not be embarrassed at all, as rational, thinking adults, to embrace the Judeo-Christian faith. Now, this may seem like a digression into some sort of anachronistic, sanctimonious proselytizing, but rest assured, the intentions of the preacher are earnest and sincere. Furthermore, many mock the Judeo-Christian believer because they erroneously assume that they are merely taking the easy way out. or they believe that they are engaging in childish naivete beyond their years. But I can attest from hard-won personal experience that choosing to follow Jesus Christ, or theism in general, over the natural man is anything but the easiest path. It is, if undertaken following a genuine conversion, and entering into an intense battle between one's basest nature and the will of God. Running this gauntlet is unlike any other that one will ever encounter. In Ephesians, we are reminded that we are not battling against flesh and flesh, but against dark principalities which flesh alone cannot slay. Becoming a Christian is also more of a choice to submit one's whole being into a relationship with the Lord over all creation, who holds the power of both life and death. That is anything but an easy commitment. That is to say, choosing to believe in God is not undertaken by genuine believers in a cavalier manner, or with an intention of escapism or venal indulgence and immersion. On the contrary, embracing God's will and choosing His truth places accountability squarely upon our fragile mortal shoulders in a way that no other so-called religion or philosophy can or does. If that is not an indication of its authenticity, I don't know what is. After all, what person seeking to escape reality and to abdicate their own personal responsibilities would choose this? None. Moreover, even the naturalistic evidence points more and more towards the authentic historicity of the Holy Bible. Even some of the miracles recorded therein actually have naturalistic explanations, even if every little detail has not yet been revealed to us. In truth, what we refer to as miracles could merely be a manifestation of those realities, but realities, nevertheless, which we cannot fully grasp. The realms of human study, often referred to as hypothetical, are merely hypotheses for the time being. Some postulates will become discoveries and then theorems, and others will merely fall by the wayside. Yet this is all, I believe, according with the will of the one who knows all, and providently guides and directs all towards perfect truth and knowledge. Thus, can scientists be mystics? You better believe it. Scientia potentia Deus est. Indeed, the more one comes to understand about the so-called natural and physical world, the more one is mystified by it. In the end, let us instead, taking a leap of both reason and faith, choose to come before God the Creator at present, and He will tell us all that we need to know. In finale, one could reasonably surmise not only that physics are just as legitimate as metaphysics, that science is just as legitimate as what we call spirituality, and that religious, spiritual concepts and beliefs in things like eternity, infinity, and everlasting life are just as much a part of hard science-observed phenomena as special relativity, quantum physics, and the like. We have seen their effects, no matter which language we use to describe them. And what humans are capable of seeing and observing, I believe, doesn't even come close to what ultimate reality actually is in its totality. Many people of faith believe that God encourages us to continue our search for the holy grail of physics and quantum physics, grand unified theory. The creator and sustainer of it all is the one who ultimately decides what humankind needs to know and will be granted access to. But in the end, people of faith believe that all will have been given adequate knowledge and insight, and all will be without excuse. And in due time, everything will make perfect sense. And that grand unified theory may be revealed to have been but a catalytic grand inquiry whose true purpose was to lead us to the ultimate revelation, just as we sought the answers. The answers, in turn, sought us.